Hey everybody! Thank you for joining along and coming and thank you for joining along and coming and following us on the show this evening. I have a pretty interesting guest tonight, and before I go into the details and um, telling you about her, let me just cover the basics that I used to cover before most of the show. So, guys, if this is your first time following along on the show, you can check us out on our website. That is at www. Oh, come on now. www.madefromscratchpodcast.com. You can find the live stream there. We are streaming live on the website. So do us a favor, go there and check it out. You can all find past episodes that I've done there as well. You can find the links to our podcast. What you do is I do upload the audio from these episodes and turn them into a podcast. And then after that, whoa, hold on. That's not cool. This is fun, people. And then also there, you can also find you can find the links to our radio station that's airing right now. I do paid past episodes on there as well. So you can check us out on the website, or you can go to our YouTube page. So if you go to our YouTube page, it is at Made from Scratch Broadcast. There, you can catch us live. You can drop into the comments as well. Do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe button. We are trying to build our viewership there, and hit the notification button. It'll let you know when we go live, and then you can also find out whenever we drop new episodes. So do us a favor, like and subscribe us on YouTube. We are trying to build our viewers as well, and then we're also streaming live on Facebook. So go to our Facebook page of the same name at Made from Scratch Broadcast. There, we are streaming live, and you can watch the video there. You can also watch us live on Twitter, and that is at MFSB Live on Twitter as well. And then finally, you can follow us now on LinkedIn. I am streaming live on LinkedIn Live, and again, you can follow me there, and that is it's actually on my page. So it's connect with me on LinkedIn, and you can see the lives there as well. And it's Gabriel E. Leal on LinkedIn. Follow me there, connect, send me a direct message. I'm always open to meeting new people. So those now that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get started about tonight's guest. So Stacy Juba is my guest tonight, and she's had a pretty interesting story. She started writing and publishing published her own book at the age of 18. So it's pretty incredible that she started very young in her craft of writing, and she's been with it for a very long time. She's done other numerous things. She's written for newspapers. She's done editing services. She still writes, and she still teaches authors on wanting to learn how to write. So again, she's very active in the writing community. And you can go check her out at her website, and that is at www.stacyjuba.com, and you can find her services there as well. So, guys, do me a big favor and help me welcome Stacy to the show.
Hi.
Hey.
Here.
How are you doing this evening, Stacy?
Good, thanks.
Awesome. I'm glad to have you on the show. I do appreciate you hopping on. So, let's go ahead and get started a little bit into the interview. And let me ask you, first of all, again, thank you for coming on to the show. And so when did you exactly start your journey as a writer? And do you remember back that far writing your first story? I mean, that's kind of...
Yeah, I do. I remember writing my first story in third grade. I loved to read. I was very painfully introverted. I was very shy. So I just started writing, I think, because I loved to read, and I found that it was a way for me to express myself. So my first story, I was probably about 9 years old, and it was The Curse of the White Witch. It was like a thriller about a good witch and a bad witch. And then in 5th grade, I was writing my own series about an amateur detective named Kathy Summers who would go out and solve mysteries, kind of like Nancy Drew. But she would usually kind of solve the mysteries because she'd eavesdrop or she'd get kidnapped, and then she'd be like, "Oh." My husband laughed when he read a couple of those. He was like, "She wasn't a very good detective, you know that." When I was in 5th grade, I thought she was great. So.
Right. That's awesome, though, that that you got started doing that very young. Because again, I think for a lot of people, they don't find that kind of passion, that kind of excitement until later on in life. So you found that at a very young age, and even carrying it when you got a little bit older and you got into adolescence and then becoming a teenager, you actually wrote your first book and had it published, which is pretty amazing, nowadays, because again, when you talk to people and you talk about writing their first books, they're usually, oh yeah, I was 28, 29. I was, even some people in my late 40s, I wrote my first book. And, you kind of go back to you. So, well, I wrote my first book at 18. So that's kind of crazy. But tell us a little bit about that. What was your first book about?
Yeah, so I actually started it when I was about 16, and I wrote a lot of it in high school study hall. And I'd written long stories before, but nothing like novel length. And I had read, like those teen magazines, like Tiger Beat. I used to read those magazines, like that was Kirk Cameron and blogs around that time. And I saw a little article about a teenage boy that won this writing contest that was sponsored by Avon Books, and the winner got published, so his book got published. And it said that the conference was held, competition was held every other year.
Yeah.
So and to enter it, you had to like get an entry form out of the back of one of the publishing company's books. So I remember I knew it wouldn't be coming around for another 2 years. So I started writing a book, and I was like, if I finish this book and it works out, I really want to enter it in this contest the next time they have it. So I decided to write a fiction novel about hockey, ice hockey, because I was very interested in ice hockey at that time. I'd gotten really into it during the '88 Olympics.
Yeah, a lot of people did. So
yeah, that was back when they had the college players, young players.
Yeah, of course.
It was more exciting to see like what they were going to do when it was over. And then and then that year the Boston Bruins were doing really well. So then after the Olympics were over, I started following the Bruins. And then because I'm such a big reader, I wanted to read some books about ice hockey, and I couldn't find any young adult novels that were fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, very few. It was mostly like biographies and autobiographies, and a lot of them were on players like from before I got into it, like 1970s. And so I said, I think I want to try writing a book, a fiction novel about ice hockey. And I came up with the idea of these two twin brothers who don't get along, and they go to separate schools. They go to different schools. One goes to private and one goes to public. And then when the family can't afford to send one of them to private school anymore, he transfers, and then they wind up on the same high school hockey team and competing to be captain. And it's a lot about them learning how to work together and sportsmanship and the family dynamics. So it was called Face Off. And then I finished the book. This is before computers, really. So I remember
exactly.
It's like electric typewriter, and I would handwrite it in study hall, and my best friend Joanne would kind of read over my shoulder, so she was like reading as I was writing it, and then she really liked it. So that kind of motivated me to keep going, because every day she'd be like, "Do you have more pages? Do you have another chapter?" And then I kind of staked out bookstores, and I would look through the books published by Avon Books in the back to see if I could find an entry form. And then one day I found the entry form, and I entered it, and I submitted it. And then I found out several months later, when I was a freshman in college, I found out that it had won and that it was going to be published. So
Oh, wow,
that
that's
was really neat. Then I had to work with the editor and I had to do a lot of rewrites on it and everything. But it was really exciting, and getting a taste of that, I think, is what kept me on that writing path. So.
Yeah, and still I mean, even back then, again, you talked about we didn't have like computers now where everybody can just sit down, and even now there's applications that you can use when you're writing a novel that will pretty much format for you. when back then, it was literally you were still learning how to format everything. I'm pretty sure a lot of editors still had their ways that they wanted you to do it. So it's pretty incredible. And, and again, it's such a young age, because 18 is, I mean, you started writing this thing before you turned 18. So that's still what's really great about it. And, I tell people all the time, you can start learning your things and you start learning your passions very early in life. So if you have kids and you see those talents start to blossom, then, that's why I try to push, my kids into doing the same sort of thing. So if you see them, hey, they love to write, let's get you started in seeing what you can do to make it an actual career, to work, kind of like what you've done, where you've kind of transitioned it into doing something that you love, going into later on in life. Because again, I know that there's people that don't find these they don't find these avenues, they don't find these passions until they're in college or after college. They find, and even past then, there's still people now. There's a lot of people in their midlife still trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives. So that's pretty incredible that you did that. So you've made an impact on so many people via your novels and the things you've written. Did you ever expect anything like this whenever you wrote your first novel? Did you ever expect it to spur into a career or going into certain things like you're doing now?
No, I remember. It's ironic that I kind of wind up like doing some teaching now, because I remember when I was like in 6th, 7th grade, there was like this old bookstore like in the next town. It was this really cool bookstore. It was in this old like warehouse, and they had these used books. And I remember getting this book it was like a college textbook on fiction writing, and I remember using it to kind of teach myself how to improve my writing. Like we had all these different assignments, like write a description of this or like write a scene of dialogue, and I used to kind of like pretend that I was like a teacher and giving myself assignments to do. So I think it's kind of ironic that now I'm actually teaching. And
that it's come full circle, right?
Right. And the other thing was like when I first started, like that, even though the book Face Off got accepted, I was in a panic when I got the letter back, the editorial letter, because it was about like 8 pages. I had to rewrite and revise. So I kind of had to overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to pull this off? What if they change their mind? And then even though that book did well, I got fan letters from kids. A lot of different kids would write to me, or teachers would have them write to authors as like an assignment. So I was flattered that some kids picked me to send a letter to. But even though that book did well, there were several years of rejection after that.
Yeah,
I think I still had to kind of find my voice and find my, my niche. And that book had the benefit of professional editing, but I was on my own for a while after that. And it was frustrating. I'd send books out to agents, and I'd get feedback like your characters are flat, or they need to be more fleshed out, things like that. And I'd kind of be like, well, what does that mean? How do I, I kind of had to teach myself how to fix it. Anytime I got some feedback that I could do something with, or that could kind of that wasn't just like a form letter, but that actually had some concrete feedback that I could apply to my manuscript, I would keep doing that. So I kind of taught myself. So now it's kind of come from full circle where I can, I used to not know what does it mean, what it meant to flesh out your character.
Yeah.
But now when as an editor, I'm always telling, right, that character needs more of a character arc, needs to be more well-rounded. So it's ironic, I think, that, but I think it's a natural progression also for me, just to kind of take what I've learned and be able to share it with other authors, help them make their dream writing come true. So.
Yeah, exactly. And, again, here you are creating, again, you're creating stories from scratch. You were learning your craft, and some people really panic at the thought of doing creative writing. Some people are really structured when it comes to what they write. They just want to, there's content writers, business writers who write just that. And if you put a computer in front of them and say, write a creative story, they kind of just panic because they don't know, they kind of just been so stuck doing one sort of form, and it's really hard. So I really admire that you've been able to do that. And you learned a lot of these things at a time where the information wasn't so readily available. You're looking for these things in bookstores. You're looking for these things, again, in libraries. You're looking for these things all secondhand, where now pretty much anybody has that information at the touch of their fingers. And, and that kind of speaks to your character as far as you wanted to learn a little bit more about your craft, understanding when these editors were telling you, hey, do this, do that, and you actually taking and put it into action. So that's not very easily done. Even now, there's people that have that information available in their hands and still struggle to understand what it means. So that's pretty crazy that you were able to do that. It kind of, I kind of admire that again, because again, that was you had to go learn it the old school way, and I think there's a lot more appreciation in that. So tell us a little bit about some of the other things that you've done besides just writing. I do believe you wrote for a newspaper for a while. Can I tell us about that?
Yeah, I started out as an editorial assistant. Actually, I should backtrack that. My college major actually was not writing. Everybody,
funny.
Yeah, I know. At the time, I didn't know what I wanted. I mean, I knew I wanted to write books, but I didn't know. Like, I was very introverted, so I didn't see myself being like a newspaper reporter. And I used to say, like, oh, I don't want to be an editor. I just want to write my own book. I don't want to be a teacher because I couldn't see myself getting up in front of like a class. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? That's a great, right? So I wound up majoring in exercise science and health fitness. Oh. Which ironically, I've actually, as a freelance writer, I've specialized in health writing, so that did actually help me eventually. But at the time, I thought I would either want to be a physical therapist or be work with cardiac rehabilitation patients. And I found out when I did my internships that I really didn't enjoy it. And so I also did an internship, like working for a cable access studio. And I wound up writing a documentary about heart disease. And I remember my internship supervisor in the cardiac rehab department at the hospital said, don't take this the wrong way, but you just seem to come alive a lot more. You just seem a lot more passionate and excited, like working on this documentary. And then, it just doesn't, it seems like that comes more naturally to you. And I said, yeah, I think it does. Just the science and the reading EKGs and everything. I was interested in it, but it just wasn't my strength. So I wound up after college. I decided I did want to do something with writing, and I didn't know what. And then the local newspaper had an ad in the paper for an editorial assistant, and it was in the newsroom. And I just felt like really pulled to apply for that job. And I got hired. So I started out doing weddings and birth announcements and obits. And also I researched this 25 and 50 years ago today column where I had to kind of look on the microfilm and try to find something positive that happened 25 years ago and 50 years ago. And then eventually I found out that I was getting a little jealous, like seeing the reporters writing and having their bylines in the paper. And even though I was shy, I thought, well, I can do that. So I went out and just covered something that nobody was covering in my hometown. And I wrote up an article and I submitted it to the editor, and he wound up running it. And then they started, I was still an editorial assistant for a while, but they also had me covering some stories, some going into town meetings and giving me some feature stories. And then eventually I became a full-time reporter there. And I met my husband there also. He was a sports writer. So it was a good
there you go.
And it actually inspired my first adult book, my mystery novel, 25 years ago today, which is about a newspaper editorial assistant and obit writer who one of her jobs is researching the 25 years ago today column. And she stumbles across a 25-year-old unsolved murder and becomes obsessed with solving it. So that definitely stemmed from my experience, except I always had to write about the upbeat, uplifting things. And I just kind of had the idea, well, what if somebody had this job, but they found an unsolved murder, like a cold case, and just got really driven to solve it. So so that was my first adult book.
Awesome, though, that again, landing somewhere like the newspaper and doing something like reporting kind of changed your life, because again, you met your husband there. You kind of worked it into your first adult novel, which is also great as well. And again, it's taking these sort of chances in life and doing things that you weren't, that you really didn't thought, you weren't really thinking about these sort of things when you took this job. You weren't thinking about, oh, I'm going to create a novel out of this. I'm going to meet my husband out of this. One of those things that just happens just by making a choice. So that's really, again, it's really great that you find these opportunities by doing that, and you found a way to make it work for you. And for a lot of people, I tell people, stay with some opportunities, because you never know, again, what will open up for you. I mean, you stuck with it, even though you were doing things you didn't want to do, until you eventually worked yourself into that role of becoming a full-time reporter. And then again, finding something else that blossomed out of that. So that's really great. And it's a really great message that I'm glad that I brought you on to get to share to people. So I even got people asking, there's somebody on LinkedIn just asked me a question, and it says, is Stacy currently working with marketing agencies? So I have no idea, but let me go ahead and ask the question to you. So are you working with any kind of staff, with any kind of marketing agencies, or anything about putting your work out there, or anything that you might be creating, any projects you have going on?
No, I pretty much do on my own, like marketing for my books and everything. And then I still do some freelance writing. Like when I was at the newspaper, I actually wound up helping them to start a health page. And that's sort of where my background and my college background kind of came into play, because I had that interest in health and fitness. And I met the director of the marketing program at our local hospital. So we used to work together on articles. And then once I left the newspaper, she and I continued working together, where she would offer me for their publication. It's sort of like a marketing outreach publication that they send out to the community. So she would call me like a couple times a year, like, hey, do you want to write some article, interview these doctors and write these articles? So I've actually been doing that kind of marketing writing for about 20 years with her, which is because we met at the newspaper. So she'll still, email me even today, hey, you want to move to do an article? So I've done a lot of marketing writing, and I at one time I did some work for the an organization called the Melanoma Education Foundation, which is
Yeah.
doing a lot of outreach, like writing press releases and articles for their newsletter. I did that for a while, like when I was working from home after I had kids. So I've kind of, I've always had an interest in marketing. So that's like one of my favorite things to do. Yeah.
Well, cool. So hopefully that might have answered your question there, Preston. And maybe you want to reach out to Stacy. Again, you can go to her website and you can connect with her there, or she's on Instagram and she's also on Twitter as well. I'll pull up your handles in just a second so people can connect with you. I do have another question that somebody actually brought in. On LinkedIn, Brooke Gelfield asks, do you think writing is something anyone can do well? She says, I feel I struggle with it because I enjoy it as much as I enjoy black licorice. So, pretty funny quote there, Brooke. Thank you for the question.
That sounds like me with math. I think people have a natural aptitude to certain areas. Like, my kids won't even come to me for help with their math homework. I learned that like in first grade. Yeah. But I always say, if you want to be a writer, you can learn it. I mean, I learned it was maybe easier for me because I think I had an aptitude for it. For reading and writing, a natural aptitude for it, but it's still, everybody is sort of like a beginner when they start writing. Yeah. There's still kind of tricks of the trade and things you have to learn. So I think if it's something you're really, even if it doesn't come as naturally to you or something else, if it's something that you're excited about and that you really want to do, I think you can teach yourself to be a better writer, definitely.
Yeah. So hopefully, Brooke, that answers your question, and appreciate you for participating in the show, Brooke. Thank you for following along. So going to our next question, which is kind of along the lines of what Brooke was asking. So, what is one of the favorite things about writing for you? And, what advice would you give someone wanting to write their first book? So, somebody comes to you and say, hey, I know that you teach writers or you help writers, that sort of thing. What would be one of the things you would advise me if I was a first-time writer who wanted to just learn how to write and didn't have any kind of knowledge about it? And my knowledge of writing is zero. So what would you kind of advice would you give me?
I think like for me, for my favorite parts of it, I really think it's neat how like when I can just sit down at my computer when I'm in to work on a scene, and it's sort of like you get in the zone. They say that for like sports too. You just get in the zone. Yes. And time just passes. Like you feel like you've been there a half hour, and it's like 2.5 hours later, and I didn't even stop to eat because I was so engrossed in it. So I think that's I really like that aspect of it because and then I just really like how it's almost like putting together pieces of a puzzle. Like when you're working on a book, like I recommend like always starting with an outline.
Yeah.
So I mean, some writers kind of like do it more spontaneously, but I don't really recommend that, especially if you're just starting out. So I would say the first thing is kind of figure out like what you want to write about. What do you feel drawn to write about?
Yeah.
Sometimes like an idea will just come over me. Usually it's more like a concept or an idea that I'll get. Like I got the idea for my my chick lit novel, Fooling Around with Cinderella, which is about a reluctant theme park princess. It's a comedy, Reluctant Theme Park Cinderella. And I got that idea when I was at a fairy tale theme park with my family, and we had just gone to visit Cinderella. And I just got this idea, like, what if it was a Cinderella that didn't want to be a Cinderella?
There you go, right?
Yeah. So you can really take any kind of idea. And I love theme parks. I love, like my husband and I got engaged at Disney World. We went to like Disneyland, Paris on our honeymoon. So I love writing. I love going to theme parks, and that was like a fun topic for me to write about. So I think that's the first thing, is write about something that you're really interested in and that where the idea excites you. And then if it's fiction, like kind of get to know your character and just keep in mind that the character should change and grow throughout the book. So kind of think about that character and what their obstacles are going to be, how they're going to change from beginning to end, and write an outline. Definitely, whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, you need that beginning and the middle and the end.
Yeah.
And, read a lot in the genre that you're interested in. Like if you want to write a mystery novel, read some of the top mystery novelists. If you want to write like a memoir, read some memoirs. I mean, in books you can read about the craft of writing, also just to kind of familiarize yourself a bit with the process. It's really hard to learn the craft just from like reading a book, but just to get you started, you definitely to get over that fear of the blank page. And then there's lots of communities, like writing communities. It's a good idea to surround yourself with other writers. Like even if there's no writers groups in your area, then there's definitely groups online.
Yeah, plenty. Again, study the genre that you really want to go into. So because there's so many, you can write true crime, you can write, there's romance, there's so many genres out there. And again, one of the big things they usually do every year is in November, they do NaNoWriMo, which is, National Write a Novel Month. And that's one of the ways to go ahead and launch if you're just trying to start and get connected with people in a writing community. And, again, one of the big things you said, outline. That is a saving grace sometimes. Outline. Because again, you start a story, you get to the point where you might get a block and you go back, step away, come back, look at the outline of what you had. And then from there, you can jump back in, keep writing. And again, that's why it's a creative process. Right. I don't think anybody just sits down and writes a novel from beginning to end in one sitting. That's insane. I mean, not that it can't be done. I'm just saying for most people, it's a process, and the story arc will change. The characters will change as you write and you develop. And again, like you say, you want to develop these characters and watch them grow as the story goes along. So that's
and the outline change also. Like you don't have to feel like it's written in stone. Like I've sometimes I'll be like, sometimes that just helps you to get started if you kind of have an idea where you're going in the middle and in the end, and then you get to know the characters more. Sometimes you might surprise yourself and wind up changing it, but it definitely it can help you to stay on track. And then I don't like facing like the blank page like the day, so I always, when I'm done working for the day, I'll just write myself like a little note where I'll just list the things that I have coming up to write about. And
that's one of the things. That's one of the things. Even if you think it's crap, just write it out. Because again, there's nothing worse than just sitting there and getting nothing done. Even if you think that you might not even use what you've written, at least you're still getting in the mindset of staying in a creative, in a creative state of mind and just writing, even if it's something that you don't think will fit well with the story. Okay. Table it later. It might be working for something else down the line, another story that you're writing. Maybe it's, again, and I've done that as well, where I've written blog posts and I sit there and I shake my head because I don't like what I'm writing. But, I will go back and look at it for something else and I go, hey, this makes sense for what I was doing on this project or this blog post. And it didn't make sense for the one I was writing on, but I still got it out there. So really great advice. And, I Preston on LinkedIn, he just said he just signed up for a free editing class. And,
good.
And he joined your email list. So awesome. Thank you, Preston, for
check out my Facebook group too if you're on Facebook.
Yes. So that's awesome that we're getting a lot of people that are, again, interacting with what's going on. So let's go to the next question, what I've been asking all of my guests, and it does have to do with the current events around us. So, how have you had to adjust to the new environment that we're living in right now, and both professionally and in your personal life? So, how have you had to adjust? I know we all had to. So, um, tell us a little bit more about that, as far as like what you've
Yeah,
been.
it's awful. Hey, who would have expected something like this to
Yes.
happen? But yeah. So luckily, we've all been able to stay home and social distance. My husband's a high school teacher, so he kind of set up a desk in my office, so we both share the office and work during the day. And my kids are home for doing school online, so we kind of all do our work projects during the day, and then every night we've been playing board games and watching movies. Like we do like a trivia night one day a week, so we've kind of have some new routines. Like I'm not really going anywhere. We're ordering groceries, and so it's just really been a total life change. And then professionally, like I was scheduled to do a workshop at a conference in May, and then that obviously was canceled.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that, although it became clear that wouldn't be
Yeah.
for any of us to do. But um, yeah, so and also like this happened like right around the time I was launching my course, Book Editing Blueprint. So um, I felt a little awkward about actively promoting it when all this is going on, so many horrible things going on. So I'm trying to kind of just be more, not have like an active launch right now. I'm more like kind of trying to build my email list and invite people in my Facebook group and connect with people so that if they're home and they're looking for something to do or looking to work on their writing, to help them, they can find me if this is a good time for them to do the course. But I've been focusing more on like promoting my books, like doing Amazon ads for my books, so that people who are already on Amazon, because they want something to read, that could help them find my books if that's a genre they're interested in. So I'm kind of doing more of that kind of marketing, just trying to go like where the people are
Yeah.
who want to read right now or who want to write, just kind of trying to be there as a resource or as like an option for them
Well,
without like actively aggressively marketing at this time, because it's just
yeah.
there's so many more important things to pay attention to right now. I
No, I
mean,
got you. That's again, it is the world that we're living in now, and again, um, we all had to make adjustments to life. We've all had to make adjustments to our careers. A lot of people for the first time are actually working from home. They've never done it before, and I think that once everything kind of shifts back to normal. I think for a lot of people, that's probably going to become their new normal. That's probably going to stay the same for a lot of people. They're probably will have businesses that'll be more inclined to say, you know what, it's better for you to work from home. There's probably going to be a lot of new, there's probably going to be a lot of new rules, new stipulations that deal with, of course, with health and all this other stuff. Because again, we don't want this to happen again. So a lot
right.
of the things that we were used to before are probably going to be changing even once we get past all of this. So um, again, it's been a blessing that you've been able to work from home. That's really great. And again, your husband now is able to do the same sort of thing and still be able to teach and that sort of thing, because there's a lot of people who don't have that option going on in life. There's waiters, there's people that had a lot of their own careers pulled out from under them, and they're just, with just been waiting and sitting in limbo, wondering when is their opportunity going to be able to come back. So, I got, there's people that are like hairstylists and
Yeah.
barbers and those people, and I know that they're suffering. And, I just say, count the blessings and tell everybody thank you for, that all that we've been able to do to kind of keep our sanity and keep being able to move forward. So that's really great. again, you've been blessed enough to be able to work from home, and then you have your husband being able to still work.
Yeah.
So awesome, definitely for sure. And then, you know, real quick before I hop into the next question, let me pull up. Where it is. So people might be able to see this. I also have it in the comments. These are her Facebook page. You can go find the link there to the group. Just click on the link in the comments, and you'll be able to find her on Twitter, on Instagram. She's there as well. And again, you can join her Facebook group for those who are wanting to join. So the link is available in the comments now if you want to connect with Stacy and joining along with her, because again, she's doing a lot. She's trying to help people out there, and again, people are just interacting, and I love the fact that we're getting this out there. So let's go to the next few questions that I have. And you help you do help individuals who come to you looking to kind of develop their voice as a writer. What was the moment for you that changed your life and helped you create your own voice as find who you were as a writer that kind of leads you now and kind of is kind of the way that you write? Do you have a moment like that in your life where you just kind of said, you know what, this is who I'm going to be. This is what I am.
I think like I experimented in so many different genres. Like you'll see that like I've written mystery, like a young adult paranormal, chick lit, children's picture books. So I've kind of written just whatever I felt drawn to write. But I think I was really surprised to find that I was drawn to write a chick lit book and humor. If somebody had told me like years ago, you're going to write like a funny sassy book, I never would have believed it, because read my like earlier books like 25 years ago today, that's more like serious, whereas books fooling around with Cinderella and prancing around with Sleeping Beauty, which are my storybook ballet series that at a theme park, they're full of quirky characters and a lot of humor, and I was really surprised to find that humorous voice came naturally to me. And that was fun to like develop it and to kind of go in that direction, because it was an unexpected direction for me. And I think for the future, that's what I see myself writing. I did wind up writing a sequel to my book Face Off, my hockey novel Face Off, called Offsides, which was kind of neat because I wrote it 25 years after the publication of Face Off. So I'm thinking about maybe doing another one of those books, but beyond that, I think what I see myself doing is writing more books in the Storybook Valley series, like more fun and humor, because that just seems to be, at this point in my life, I think it's just so much bad news, there's so much negativity out there, and I'm feeling drawn more to read those kind of books, and I think they're a good escape for people to read, and also for me to write. That's kind of where I'm at this time. I feel like I'd rather write about silly things happening and romance happening at this theme park than a murder mystery. So
awesome, though. That's great, though. And again, because there's always, I guess you could say, that's that one light bulb moment in your life that everybody has, and that's really cool that you didn't plan on writing humor and that sort of thing, but it's what comes natural, right? It's kind of flows because it's kind of it's kind of like what your personality is. You're real fun. You're real joy to interact with. So that comes across really well, and I can see why it's so easy for you to write that. So, I do call people creative souls, because we all have a need for, we all have a need and a passion for self-expression. So, what are some of the ideas and processes that you use whenever you're approaching a new project, when you're approaching writing a new book, or even a workshop or a teaching class? What are some of the things that you kind of, I guess, draw inspiration to create?
Like if I'm writing a novel, like I'll spend some time like kind of rewriting, like from the point of view of my main character, to kind of get to know the character, and I fill out these extensive like character charts where I just really try to, it's like a questionnaire I made where I just answer all these questions about the characters so I could really just get to know them and about their pasts and what their favorite things are, what their least favorite things are, what they want. So I think that's important. I do a lot of, coming from a journalistic background, I do a lot of research, and I'll research every little thing, like for my storybook ballet books. Like there was a scene where the character Jane, she's a bridesmaid in a wedding. So like she went to a bridal shop and was trying on like a dress, and I hadn't been to a bridal shop for a while, or so I and I was like looking for pictures of bridal shops, looking for pictures of dresses, and how am I going to describe this dress? And then I saw some of the colors like tutti frutti, and I knew that's like it had to be something silly like that. And so I'll do a lot of research, even if it seems like it's a small little detail. Yeah. Before I sit down to write that scene. If I know that I need to describe a dress, or I know I need to describe something, or I have to describe a place, and if it's something I'm kind of having trouble coming up with just off the top of my head, I'll do some research. And I've researched, like I'll do interviews with people too, like if I need to, because sometimes that will give me writer's block, really. Like that gave me writer's block for my book Offsides, my hockey novel, because I needed to kind of research like the college hockey landscape and the junior hockey and the path to the NCAA from high school and everything. And so I did a lot of research. I found an organization that I was fortunate that we did a telephone interview and they answered all my questions. So sometimes to get unstuck, I just have to go interview somebody, or just kind of go do some research. I watch a lot of like YouTube interviews with former Disney princesses. And I watch videos of like Six Flags employees. Like for my mystery novels, I've gone to interview police officers and police detectives and kind of run things by them. So that's always part of my creative process. And I think it just comes from that journalistic background, that trying to make it as authentic and vivid as possible.
And that's awesome that you take the time to do that. And, because again, I think you still have that knack for doing like a lot of the old school methods. And I think those are still beautiful to use. I think, because again, you get the authentic side to it. You do get that reach, because again, some people can just look it up and they'll find simple answers on YouTube and they'll find stories like that. But I think when you actually reach out to somebody and you get that one-on-one feel, that touch, that kind of helps in creating and develop some of these characters, because again, you can find traits from these people that you can actually write into who your character is just by reaching out to them. I think that's awesome that you still do that. That's great. So, I'm getting to the last few questions, and let me go ahead and start with this one, and then I'll get to my very last one that I ask every single guest that I've had on. So once we get past this current crisis, what are some of the plans for you as far as what you want to do? I mean, personally or professionally, either way, what is one of the things that you would want to do now that, they lift everything up and you can go back out free into the world?
See, I think just like professionally, I'd like to, I'm kind of taking this time to catch up on a lot of things. Like I've been making book trailers for all my books, things like that. I've been kind of catching up on my Amazon ads, my keywords and things like that. But kind of once I've caught up with everything, and hopefully once we get some normalcy back, I'd like to work on creating some more classes for writers. So I have my class, Book Editing Blueprint.
Yeah.
I plan to making your novels publishable, and that's geared more to fiction writers and creative nonfiction writers also. But I've been hearing like some nonfiction writers who do more kind of like straightforward educational kind of nonfiction. So I'd like to do kind of a light version of the course, which just has like the copy editing and the line editing, since they won't really need all the characterization and setting and that kind of thing. Yeah. And then like you have like a module in it just with some tips on developing your nonfiction book.
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I also have I've been working on like these character emotion toolkit that I plan to like sell on my website. I kind of put it aside for a while because I was working on some other things, but I'd like to get back to that. And it's basically it's sort of like it's something that they can writers can print out and put in a binder, and it's arranged by like different emotions. It kind of helps them to come up with different ways to say like smile or those cliched kind of phrases. It just has some different suggestions for them, and then there's blank lines for them where they can kind of put their own phrases, so that it's kind of going through their book editing, trying to pump up some of their nonverbal communication or trying to put a little more emotion into it. They can just kind of flip through their binder and just get some ideas for how to put something in. So I'd like to kind of get that out there. And then I've been thinking about writing a Storybook Valley Christmas novella, and then thinking about doing a third book of my Hockey Rivals series. So I think those are a couple projects I'd like to do. And then my family's just looking forward to being able to travel again. There you
go. Right.
Anywhere that, my daughters are like to go to Taco Bell, anywhere,
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah. So I'd like to go back to Disney World safely someday.
Right. I mean, now you get to go, want to get back out and go enjoy the things that you were doing before, and kind of find a little bit more joy in them now, a little bit more perspective. Seeing how now that, everybody's had it taken away, for me, hopefully they're still in existence once this is over, but I would like to go sit down in a movie theater and watch a movie. I love movies, and I dabbled in screenwriting for a little bit, but I love theater, and I would love to just go do that again and sit down and enjoy a good movie, and not look at all the negative things that I guess we used to do. I used to do this too whenever I'd go in there in the movie theater, and they'd go, "Oh, it's too crowded," or the trash is on the floor. You know what? I can live past all that. I just think I want the human interaction, because again, there's something about it when you see that happening on the big screen and people are cheering and laughing, and you get to enjoy it with everybody else. So I think that's, for me, what was one of the things. And of course, I want to go to hike in the mountains of Colorado. Something I've always wanted to do. And I wish I would have done it before, but I didn't. But again, I know that there'll be an opportunity once we move past all this, and I'm going to take full advantage of it. So awesome that you're doing that. And then let me go ahead and get into the last question. And I asked this of all my guests. And what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind in this world once everything is said and done for you? And again, it's kind of a morbid question, but once we're done and lifetime's over, what is the one thing that you want to leave behind? What is the one thing that you think you want to be remembered for?
I think for my books, there's just been so many authors that have over the years have brought me like escape and joy, and I just like knowing that my books would still be here for people to read and to be an escape or entertainment for them, because that's really what my books are. I'm just trying to entertain them and give them an escape. And then I'd also like to just to make it in writers' life and help them to learn something. Like I had like a long where I had to learn about the path to improving my writing and learning how to self-edit my book. Because again, there was like no internet back then. I went to conferences. I read a lot of books. Trial and error for working with editors and agents. And I'd like to just know that I made a difference in some writers' lives. Like I've had some clients who put me in the acknowledgements of the books, and that always makes me really happy that they feel that I helped them and taught them something, and just kind of made that whole process easier so that they could get that book out there. That was really important for them to get out. So
That is awesome, awesome, awesome. So, thank you again, Stacy, for coming on and sharing yourself and sharing what you do. Thank you, everybody on LinkedIn who's been commenting a lot. You were talking about creating your character development thing. Brooks, like, please do that. It sounds helpful. I want that. Please
oh
get it.
god.
Yeah, please get it out here. So thank you, Brooke, and we'll see if Stacy gets that out there to the world. But again, thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Kenneth Dunner, of course, my friend, Marcello Archuleta. I always say that wrong. Arcele. Gosh, I always say his name wrong. He's going to kill me for that. But again, Brooke, Preston, thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for commenting and joining along. And then thank you, Stacy, for coming on and sharing your story as well. Guys, if you want to go check her out, Preston's already signed up for her editing workshop. So you can go check her out. And her website is at www.stacyjuba.com. That's STACYJUBA. And then in the comments below in the links, you can go click on them and you can access to her Facebook page. You can join her group there. There's also the link to find her on Twitter, and that is at Stacy Juba on Twitter. And then you can find her on Instagram as well, and it's Stacy_Juba on Instagram. So check her out. Sign up for her classes, reach out to her and connect with her if you're not familiar with Stacy. Great person, great story, and thanks a lot again, Stacy, for coming on. I do appreciate you sharing your time this evening. And
thank you for having me. It was fun. And thanks for all the questions. Everybody was watching.
Yeah. So, and again, it goes pretty quick. Here we are. We're almost 57 minutes into a conversation. And I tell everybody an hour will go by so fast, and you won't even realize it. And it's a lot of fun. And again, you get a lot of people who connect and interact. And I love this about sharing this forum and sharing people like yourselves who have such a great story to share, and that are still out there helping people in the world. And that's one of the things that I want to kind of been my mission a little bit when I started doing this, was to put spotlights on writers and authors. They're, even though they have author pages and they're in groups and that sort of thing, I don't think they get the exposure that they literally could, that video can actually provide. So now when people go look up and they'll go try to find who you are, they'll find this video on YouTube. They'll find it on Instagram and Facebook, and they'll kind of be more familiar and put a face and a smile on a character who Stacy is. And that's why I love sharing this. So I'm trying to reach out to a lot more authors. I had another one on this earlier this week on Monday. He was a ghostwriter, and which is kind of an interesting aspect as well to doing the whole writing thing. And I love bringing authors to the forefront in writing, because again, if you're not Stephen King, you're not James Patterson, you're not Jackie Collins writing all these big time stories in stores, people aren't familiar with a lot of writers, and I think that we get they don't get the necessary promotion and pub that they deserve, because they do share a lot. I mean, what would the world be right now without writers and creators and that sort of thing that people are consuming right now, because it's all there is to do. So pulling up an audio book and listening to it, or watching a movie that a writer wrote, or reading a book, and all these things are just incredible. So thank you, Stacy, for coming on. Thank you guys for joining. And again, check her out one more time. It's at www.stacyjuba.com, and connect with Stacy. Thank you again for hopping on. I'll see you guys tomorrow night, 7:00, same time, same channel. My guest will be Marissa Callie. She does social media, and we'll talk about that tomorrow, and her website, allthesocial.com. So thank you guys for coming on. Have a great evening. Practice safe social distancing. Wash your hands. Do the whole 6 feet thing. We're doing it for a reason. We're all going to get through this, everybody, and it's just going to be a temporary thing. So good night. Stay safe. Stay blessed. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow night at 7:00. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Okay. Well.